Hello, welcome to the Philosophy, Science, and Religion podcast. Today's episode is the audio from a recent hangout I had with Poffo Ortiz and his friend Iman. We talked about vegan activism and pantheism and religion and all sorts of interesting topics, including the movie Idiocracy. It was a very fun talk covering a lot of topics, and so it's a good fit for a philosophy, science, and religion episode. So this is a published audio-only version for those who subscribe through iTunes or Stitcher but don't follow my YouTube channel where the video is posted. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, we're live. Hey everybody. This is another one of our Vegan Pantheist hangouts that's kind of become a tradition on Saturdays. And I don't think I'll be doing this next Saturday because I'm doing a show with Monique next Saturday night, but I'm here with Poffo, and I sent the link to Angie and Gaius, who may join us if they happen to be available. As for now, Poffo, we have some catching up to do because we haven't talked for a long time. And so much is happening, but like you said, everything's happening, but nothing's happening all at the same time. And I think I know what you mean, you know? So you've been doing like this activism that you were telling Gaius and I about, and you've sent links about stuff like that. And that's cool. And then I've been busy with work, but also I've been getting together with, my high V people. Like they recently went to this Mexican restaurant. All right. And so here's the thing is, it's like, just like last time, it's great to be included, but it's also awkward when I get questioned about why I'm vegan. I hate that. You know what I mean?
Why do you hate it, man? It's a perfect opportunity to to share the truth about why we have chosen this ethical position.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's good that I'm given the opportunity. So that's a good thing. That's a good reason, to be excited about that. But at the same time, it's so frustrating because I'm not good at it. I don't think.
You're not. I mean, you're good at speaking. So you mean you're not good at sort of having like rebuttals and being able to like articulate it? I mean, because you're a good speaker. You say what's on your mind and you don't have a problem talking.
Yeah. See, it's interesting. Like, for example, of course, Poffo, I don't have very much confidence in my ability to communicate effectively ideas. So like, maybe you can tell me how I did at this, because I'll tell you what happened here. Okay, so almost everything on the menu was full of meat. This is a Mexican restaurant, and I would have expected. I mean, this wasn't like Taco Bell. Taco Bell is actually an easier Mexican restaurant than this because it's simple at Taco Bell, beef or no cheese. But here there was a menu and everything had ham or chicken, but there was a veggie quesadilla. So I asked the waitress, is the veggie quesadilla just vegetables? And she says, well, and cheese. And I said, well, how about veggie quesadilla, but no cheese, no meat, no eggs, no nothing, just the vegetables? She's like, okay. So I got my order, okay? So that was good, But so then Trevor's a nice guy. He found out I'm vegan before, and so he asked how I became vegan, and I said, well, I found out that so many animals are tortured and killed in order for these products to exist, and I don't want to eat them because I don't want the animals killed, And
that's it, basically.
Yeah, it's simple. And maybe that's a straight, simple answer. But and his response is funny. Like, he said, well, you belong in the 60s. And I said, what do you mean? He says, peace and love and smoking weed. And I'm like, should
peace and love be like relegated to a certain point in time in history? Shouldn't that be the goal of all civilized societies?
So I asked him, are you saying I'm a hippie? And he's like, yeah. And I said, well, so I, about the smoking weed part, I didn't get the smoking weed part. And I said, well, Trevor, I don't smoke plants, I eat them. And
obviously this guy is somewhat sheltered, and he has no awareness of how massive veganism is and the movement, what it's become. That's one of the reasons I sent you that speak out protest. I thought it was incredible. Just the amount of people. Basically, when you have that many people, you can't just tell somebody to leave. Like, there was like 300 people there, and,
right.
and you're demanding people's attention, whether they agree or not. You're making the case that, hey, this is a significant movement, and this is what we stand for, and they call it upsetting the. There's a word, or she talks about it. Iman, the girl that I do activism with, if she comes on, if she joins us, it'd be great if she explained it to you. But it's disrupting the complacency of society, of modern society, that of meat consumption, of eating milk, cheese, eggs, and dairy, and that it's not normal. Like, we're trying to just make the point this is not normal, because people can go their whole lives and they'll never hear anyone contest this idea, this horrific idea that we're basically exploiting animals for their bodily secretions and for their flesh.
Yeah, see, and I like that. See, that's actually wonderful when groups of people can get together and then people can't just ignore it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I feel like, in my situation, I feel kind of on the spot, like there's all this pressure because I'm the only vegan anybody in Lee's Summit knows, and
that's why you like. I know that's why you like these hangouts, because it's also helping to fulfill a certain need you have for connection, for companionship, for for your value system to be reinforced.
Yeah, and
we all need that.
Yeah, see, here's why I like doing hangouts with you and Gaius and Angie and anybody else we can get on, is because I feel like then I don't have to, from my brain, come up with all the answers and explain everything. There's somebody else to jump in when I'm tongue-tied, when I'm not able to think fast enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what helps a lot is actually just watching interviews, watching lectures, like James Avery and Gary Yourofsky, and watching these great speakers and these great activists do what they do, and having to basically answer the same like bullshit excuses and justifications over and over and over. It'll prepare you. It gives you the ammunition, so to speak, to be able to confront that.
By the way, that reminds me. You know that that debate, the vegans versus the ex-vegan debate that you sent me a link to?
Yeah, I commented the shit out of that.
I saw it. You left a whole bunch of comments there. So yeah. I had to listen.
I was commenting as I was watching it live, so I was really into it, like every moment. That's what it was. It was more like I was in the debate myself.
Yeah, so I had to listen to that in some stages, but I actually listened to the whole thing, and it was driving me mad though. Okay, it was driving me absolutely insane. And here's like I just don't get it. My trouble is that the guy acted like he was offended when people made comparisons to suffering, and as like the suffering of animals could never compare to what humans are experiencing.
I left comments saying specifically, I said, your problem is, you don't value animal life. You're not putting animal life in the same category as human life. You're putting human life above. You're viewing animals as inferior. You're viewing human beings as superior. And that's not necessarily the case. So that's the problem to begin with, right there. Is your value system is screwed up.
Yeah, and I did feel that the guy he was talking to, however, did have a very good response. Well,
they were incredibly patient.
Yeah, there was that
method. They were asking questions. It was very. It schooled me. I was like, wow, I wouldn't have the patience to allow it to. And then in the end, they both kind of. They both kind of tag team, and they just put them on the spot. I love that.
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it too.
called him out on his bullshit.
that man and that woman were both asking him questions, and it actually went really well. But see, I wouldn't have had the patience to put up with someone like that, because for my whole thing is, it's absolutely, first of all, there's no need to cause the suffering. We don't need to, as they point out several times. But the response they had that was great is that we were saying that it was wrong to cause that suffering, but both in the context of humans or other animals. We don't even need to debate which species suffers more. It's completely irrelevant, because we just don't need to cause that suffering to begin with. But
they did. I thought they did a great job, and I'm gonna be joining that guy soon again on another podcast. Like, I had heard about it, and then it was actually happening sooner than expected, because Australia, they're a day ahead here, from where we are. I'm pretty sure it was Australia or UK, so it was ahead of the time I thought, and I was like, whoa, this is happening now. Okay, I want to get in on it. I want to watch this, and I felt like I was in the middle of it. And I think that I'm going to be, just like I ended up joining you guys with the shows you do, I'm going to be joining him on his, what's his name, Chris something. But I think he's got a really good method, and he doesn't, he's not coming on too strong. He's making all the cognitive points. He's allowing the person to actually engage in critical thinking and think for themselves. Speaking of, I was at an event last night at the college where an ex-Muslim, she has an organization to help Muslims, people who have come out of that indoctrination, and she spoke, and Peter Boghossian posted it, and I was able to actually meet both of them, and we went to the after party at a bar, and I basically hung out and drank beer with Peter Boghossian. I don't know if you know who he is, but he is
I have heard of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, Seth Andrews had him as a guest on Thinking Atheist. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he's amazing, and it is a brilliant parallel to what we do on with our street activism, and using the Socratic method and asking questions, getting people to start thinking and questioning their beliefs and questioning their traditions. But the entire conversation, he ended up basically trying to justify his meat eating, because he's sitting there eating a low-carb burger with bacon and everything. And, I didn't really bring it up. He knew that me and my friend were, animal rights activists, and he just kind of focused on that and talked about how he has Crohn's disease. If he didn't eat meat, he would have nothing to eat. And it's necessary, and it doesn't apply to everyone. But he totally agrees with me, and he totally agrees that factory farming is wrong. And everyone always says that factory farming is atrocious, and they agree. But so he believes in humanely raised and humanely killed, meat and animals that are locally raised and organic and grass fed and all that crap. So that was basically his thing, was for health reasons he has to eat meat, and but he 100% agrees with me. And I spoke about pantheism and biopan with him, and he said, it all sounds rational, it sounds reasonable, it sounds logical. I could totally support it. I get behind it. I was saying that we need an alternative of people who are coming out of the religious indoctrination. What do they have in terms of fellowship, community, and some kind of a connection with something greater than themselves, because they've lost all that now. So for the atheists and the agnostics, pantheism is the go-to path. And I described what biopan was. So it was great. I was able to talk to him, and he was actually, he came over and sat right next to me, and we were engaging the whole time. So it was, the guy is kind of like one of my heroes, so it was a pretty amazing thing. Yeah. But I mentioned, I was like, I always hear you say in your lectures every morning you eat bacon and you give your kids bacon, and you always mention that, how you're very routine, and and you consistently eat that in the morning. So and he was like, well, this is why, and I was like, there's certain questions, the unanswerable questions, and that's where biopan and pantheism comes in. And he goes, well, those questions, there is an answer to those questions, and I said that you don't know, and he goes, yeah, that's it, you're right, my stuff, because to hold the position of being agnostic when it comes to things we don't know, that's the most truthful way to be. And I agreed with him, but I said, but I do have these answers, but they're speculation, and it's theory and stuff, but there's nothing wrong with that because, we can extrapolate from evolution where evolution is taking us. So I got bits and pieces in there, with him, but it was really interesting. It was great.
Yeah.
He's actually local. He's in Portland actually. So hopefully I'll meet with him again.
Yeah, that's cool. You get to actually talk with him. Sounds like you had a pretty good talk. Like he agrees with veganism as a whole, yet he seems to think that he has to eat meat. Yeah,
and I didn't get too much into it because I didn't want to argue with him. I just let him talk, and I wanted him to hear what I had to say. So we can approach it some other time. But I was I was glad to meet him and stuff, and I had a few beers and just it was chill. It was pretty cool because this guy was just with Richard Dawkins on stage, and he travels the country doing these lectures. He basically wrote the book on street epistemology. And I told him, I said, I've submitted to like 12 hours of street epistemology because I care about truth, because I don't want to delude myself. I want to make sure that I'm not deceiving myself or deceiving any of the people that I communicate with. And he goes, that's noble, and I appreciate that, And I was like, I support everything you're doing, but I think there needs to be more focus and emphasis on ethics and values and what people can find, where people can find inspiration, and what we can do to to have a religious experience. We talked about Sam Harris a lot, and his take on it. So that was that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, you gotta deal with some of these things a little bit at a time. Finding the approach that works. See, Poffo, this is the difficulty I have with people, is that they don't work as easily as do computers. Computers are much easier to change their settings and to reprogram, in a sense. Whereas humans, it's like they have all these emotions, and it's like, if I come at them full on with all the facts, then it'll overwhelm them. And
you gotta. It has to happen in stages. You can't overwhelm someone, and it has to be at their own pace, and according to their level of understanding. And this is kind of the strange dichotomy where we're with Cube of Truth, with Anonymous for the Voiceless. We have to sort of straddle that line where we're trying to get as much information as we can in a very limited amount of time, but we don't want to be pushy. But we do want to influence, as much as possible. So it's a juggling act. It's about balance, really.
It's a difficult thing. But here's an interesting thought. Now, here's a certain approach I've thought of. Now, one approach to think of is to, rather than not explain all about the dairy and the eggs and the honey right off the bat, but just start with the meat, the most obvious one. That's the most obvious of all the issues, because on some level, people know that in order for that meat to get there, some animal has to be killed. At least they know that on some level. Whereas the eggs and the dairy and the honey, they don't have a clue. They don't know anything about it, just like I didn't, So
there were several vegetarians today. I met several vegetarians, and I was like, "What's stopping you from going full vegan?" I mean, you do know the cruelty involved, and in many ways, dairy is even worse because the animals are enslaved for a lifetime, and they're artificially inseminated, forcefully impregnated, continuously denied. Their babies are stolen from them, and just basically consigned to a life of servitude and slavery. And I talk about eggs, and I'm like, you don't actually think eggs are healthy, do you? I try to make the point as if it's common knowledge. I try to constantly say in a sense that you do know. I say it like that. You do know the latest studies, and this is the scientific evidence. The verdict is in. So why are we still breastfeeding? Why are we still drinking milk as adults? Just make those points without being too offensive.
Well, and that's the thing. But the real question. I like the way you say it there. But the real question, Poffo, is: do they know? Because my thought is, if they did know, they would be vegan.
Most people don't, or they don't think about it. Or like the hunter that I met today, who he shoots and kills his own meat. He doesn't support factory farms, and in his mind, well, he's like, the animals are going to die anyway. And I'm like, sure, animals are food for other animals, but not for human beings. Hey, Iman.
Hi.
This is Iman, my friend. Who does
hi.
Voices with me. Iman, Chandler, Iman.
What are you talking about?
Oh yeah,
Actually,
we were
talking about activism.
Okay.
Poffo and I, we were just talking about our approaches when exposing people to veganism, you know, and Poffo was just saying, like, you do know this and this and this, like, you know, like that eggs aren't healthy and all this. Like, Poffo was explaining that to me, and I was explaining my approach of starting out with the basics, because people aren't even, most people are not even vegetarian. Like, I think if everyone can first agree to vegetarianism, that's a good basis start. It's not far enough, but yeah, it's like for example, you know, there's that lady who tried to tell me that it doesn't kill calves to take its mother's milk, even though we know it really does in one way or another. But the point is, there's no point in discussing that with her, because she doesn't care if animals die, because she's eating meat all the time.
It's a hard thing when they straight up have no empathy whatsoever, and you know that they're just like, I don't care, I like the taste of meat, blah blah blah. You know, how do you deal with that with a completely apathetic person? I say you do what you can, you plant the seeds, and then move on. You move on to those who are willing.
That, you know, it just depends on the person. Like, some people, I don't know if you're familiar with the trans-theoretical model of change, but some people are, like, stuck in the pre-contemplation stage where they're never going to consider, like, the benefits of veganism. And so with those people, you know, you just got to be like, I can discuss this with you at a later time, but right now there's not really a point. I'm going to move on to somebody that's more receptive. Like, I definitely think that the ethics is the most compelling reason to go vegan. But if they're not willing to listen, then there's not much you can do about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the most compelling reason, but for them, it's they're not even thinking about it. So sometimes you gotta kind of approach the health thing or the environmental thing. I think that vegetarian today said, "Yeah, I'm vegetarian for the environment," you know, and I was like, "That's great," because he saw Cowspiracy. I always say, just watch these documentaries, man, and it'll completely, you know, inform you when it comes to all these issues. That's what's necessary. That's why I linked up I found all 3 documentaries on YouTube today, and I linked them in the group chat.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, because see, like, I have a really hard time at not understanding what it's like for people who don't care if these animals are suffering and dying, you know. Like, for example, I like when it comes to somebody who's racist between different skin colors of humans, for example, I don't know how to deal with that. Like, if I were to come across a racist person like that, I couldn't deal with that because I've never had that mindset in that case.
Yeah, where do you even begin? I say, like I said, like Iman just said, like, you know, move on and don't waste your energy, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
Focus on those who are open to it, open to the information.
Yeah.
Let's. Do you want to talk a little bit about activism? Because Iman, I was really impressed with that video. That gigantic, you know, speak out in
the
mall.
one at the DXC forum.
Yeah, that was incredible.
I know.
Honestly, okay, here. At first, let me be honest. It felt like a very cult-like, almost like a religion, because she's speaking and then they're just repeating what she's saying. But I get it that it was all part of the speech, and we all felt the same. We all feel the same, and they're saying the same words because it's what we mean, and then everyone's hearing it. And then as they marched and they went through, I mean, I thought it was powerful because she was standing up on the tables and the cops, security were around. They didn't do nothing because, like, you got that many people. It's like, what are you going to do? You know, you can't just politely tell them to leave. Like, they have to leave on their own, and that's the power of numbers, you know?
Yeah, I think when you have such a large presence like that, it's just people have to take you seriously because, I mean, you're just there and you're like spreading the message. But even if it's a speak out of a small crowd, I think it still makes a difference. Like, the point is to disrupt speciesism, and the more that we can say that that's not normal, like it's not normal to eat animals, then, like, you know, the more that we can challenge those beliefs. And the point is not to, like, convert people one-on-one like we would do if we were having, like, a conversation with them, but it's just to get people that are in that pre-contemplation stage to have to think about eating animals and, you know, just like consider like that it might not be unethical or, you know what I mean?
What's the phrase? You started to break up a little bit there. I think your signal was bad, but what's the phrase you use? Disrupting the, what do you call it? What's the
disrupt speciesism?
Yeah, so that's it. That's what I was trying to explain earlier, Chandler. It looks like he's frozen too.
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Are you there? Okay. Yeah,
I'm here.
Yeah, the disrupting speciesism, basically disrupting the status quo, like the normal, you know, day-to-day. In that mall, you could just see the people. They're eating Chinese food. They're eating, like, steak. They're eating stuff. They're eating sandwiches. And this may be the first time anyone's ever even stopped to consider it, you know, that, like, oh, I'm eating animals. I'm eating animal parts, you know. And it doesn't mean you're going to convert anybody on the spot, but it's like a seed. It's like a step on the journey.
Like for example, I know before I went vegan, if something like that happened to me, I would like probably feel guilty, not like go vegan right away. But before I went vegan, I had a lot of guilt, and I wasn't like willing to look into veganism because meat tasted good. But then, you know, it just built up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to take this seriously. And so I realized it wasn't so hard.
I never experienced anything like this. I wish that I had seen some kind of event or something like that. I've never experienced anything like that at a grocery store or anything. What I did, what I was exposed to was PETA undercover footage videos, and I was sent pamphlets and information and stuff, and I would watch videos online, and I would feel bad. I felt especially bad for pigs because I liked bacon. I liked the taste of bacon. You know, I ate bacon a lot. I didn't like ham, but I always liked putting bacon on stuff. And just seeing the videos, I never shied away from them, but it pricked my conscience, and I always felt guilty. And I always told myself, I said, I'm probably eventually going to be vegetarian. I'm probably going to just completely cut it because I do feel bad. I do love animals, and there's no, like, I never had any kind of what's the word? I never had any cognitive dissonance. You know, like I accepted it. My ex-roommate was a vegan. My ex-roommate was vegan, but she never talked about it. She would just cook her food and then go in her room. And I'm like, I wish she would have talked to me about it. Like, she mentioned Earthlings. She talked about Food Inc. She talked about.
Well, do you think that if you asked, why didn't you ask more questions? Do you think that was because I know for me when I have roommates, like, it's kind of uncomfortable to, like, they know I'm vegan, and I wish that, like, could educate them about veganism, but I don't want to just come out of nowhere and start being like, "Hey, did you know?"
No, because I've always loved animals. If this girl would have talked to me about the brutality and just the horrid living conditions and what animals suffer, what they go through, like, I had no idea. No, it's not that I was completely in the dark, but it's you need to be exposed to it, like, firsthand. And if she had just started talking to me about it, I could have probably gone vegan a lot sooner. So it's like I never I felt the guilt, and just with every bit of exposure to the information and to the footage, I gradually grew more and more just conscious and aware of it. And then it was really my philosophy. It was biopantheism, and taking this leadership role and trying to educate others in this philosophy and continuously talking about loving and respecting nature. Just there's no justification for it. So that's what eventually led me to it.
Yeah. So philosophy. So Poffo, what you're saying is that if that girl had talked to you more about it than she did, it might have resulted in you going vegan sooner.
She never talked to me about it at all. I just knew that she was, and then they had just mentioned something about watching Earthlings or watching some documentaries, and I said, "Oh yeah, well I've seen Food Inc." And I agree, but that was it. She just never. I mean, she was an introvert, too. So, I don't know. But the point is, you never know who you can affect. Don't ever be afraid, to speak up, and don't ever be afraid to just say what you mean. Take advantage of every opportunity. Don't let an opportunity go by. I was trying to convert Peter Boghossian last night in a very subtle way.
Yeah, and this is interesting. Because earlier, your name's Iman.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, man. Yeah. Before you came on, I was telling Poffo how, my coworkers at Hy-Vee, sometimes they invite me out to eat with them at restaurants, and they're always curious about me because I'm always trying to find something with all vegetables, which is surprisingly difficult at the restaurants they go to. It's just weird. Like they went to this Mexican restaurant called Jose Peppers, and the only thing on the menu that didn't have meat was a vegetable quesadilla. But I asked the waitress what that had in it, and so it had a bunch of vegetables, but it had cheese, and so I requested no cheese on the vegetable quesadilla. So I got something satisfactory for me. But other people watched this, and then they asked me about why I'm vegan, and that makes me uncomfortable because, like I told Poffo, I feel like it puts me on the spot because I'm all alone. I'm the only vegan they ever have encountered, probably the only one they ever will encounter. And
point them to the information, point them to the documentaries. Be like, I'm not alone in this, man. Like, pretty soon you're going to be the minority, Like, tell them that. Be like, veganism is taking over, sweeping over the world. It's the only sustainable option at this point when it comes to the environment, when it comes to, saving the ecosystem from destruction. So,
yeah. I think that I love when people ask me, why are you vegan? Because they might not be ready for the detailed explanation that you could give them, but it's just still like shows that, people aren't ignoring it and they're starting to, have more curiosity. And I wish that I never knew a vegan before I went vegan. And I feel like I definitely could have went vegan sooner if I had met one.
Same thing. I was going to say, like it's don't be afraid to speak, man. Don't be afraid to, because there's another aspect to this that, like, you want to create a good representation of what veganism is, because a lot of people may know about veganism, but all they've seen are bad examples, and all they've seen are like pushy, obnoxious people, or they see it as like it's a cult, or it's like this fringe movement. So you have the opportunity at any given moment to represent veganism in a positive light and help them actually to change their perspective on what they might already have have a preconceived notion of what veganism is. So you can change that.
And here's the interesting thing about it. Now, I'm like, in a way, I'm glad when somebody asks, because that is an opportunity that hardly ever happens where someone actually asks me. It gives me a chance to respond. And even if they do react badly, well, they asked. You don't want to know, don't ask. But here's the thing about it is, I've never been powerful at discussions. I don't debate people. I've never been one to discuss things. And I guess it's different. Like, okay, like if it's about, Christianity versus atheism or something, how often does that actually come up in public? It doesn't. It really doesn't all that much. How much does abortion come up, or gay marriage, or immigration, or something like that? How often do all those other controversial things really come up? But because this carnism and veganism thing is a food-related issue, and so much of human social interaction is around food, that is the one issue. This is the only issue.
Did you watch that Will Tuttle lecture, by the way? Because I thought that was amazing. So inspirational, and he talks about how that
I saw him speak, and I read his book.
Yeah,
it was really cool.
Yeah,
I really like how he ties spirituality into like the nonviolence associated with veganism.
Right, and really that the idea of human evolution and how can we evolve and as a intelligent, logical, compassionate species if we're still committing these atrocities, if we're still treating other life forms this way, we're taking in the violence, we're taking in the stress and the torture into ourselves. Like, he says there's a karmic effect happening where human beings are getting cancer because we're giving animals cancer. Human beings are getting osteoporosis because we're stripping them, we're sucking them dry of all their calcium, all their milk. The family is breaking up and there's violence and all this kind of stuff because we're breaking up families, animals' families. So I don't know if it's maybe it's kind of a false equivalence, but it's food for thought, definitely. No pun intended. It's definitely makes you think because our food choices. So I mean, many spiritual gurus and throughout history have said this. What we take into our bodies, that's what we put out. Whatever, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. It's the old saying: "You are what you eat." Except what's ironic about this is I don't eat animals because I am an animal. It's kind of funny because I realize I am an animal. So in a sense, I don't eat what I know I already am. So I kind of blew it, in that saying. But
there's a big distinction I want to talk about here. Like both you guys, think about this for a minute. But like we really, really need to make the distinction. Okay, we know that human beings are animals. We're primates. We're highly evolved primates. But we need to really make that distinction and say we are a very special primate that has the ability to judge between right and wrong, and we have this moral capacity. And other animals don't have that. There's hints of it, altruistic behavior in simians and in cetaceans and stuff. But it's highly developed in humans because we have the frontal lobe. That's the difference. So they're continuously, the naturalistic fallacy, the appeal to nature. Well, animals eat other animals. Well, lions kill gazelles. Well, animals life feeds on life, and it's like right. And we are heterotrophic beings. We have to feed on life to survive as well. But we can choose what form of life we ingest. That's the difference. If we have the choice to slaughter and kill a sentient being or not, and just feed on vegetation and fruits and nuts and seeds, then it's immoral not to do the other. That like we actually, animals are food for other animals, but they don't have to be food for human beings. So we have to just make that distinction that we actually have the power to make that choice. And I think we should really stress the evolution of our species. And at this stage in our evolution, that human beings have this capacity to think and reason and ruminate and be cognizant, be aware of the choices we make. Whereas other animals in the wild, in primitive nature, they have no choice. They just do what they do to survive. They're working based primarily on instinct, and human beings don't just function on instinct. So there's a difference there. There's a big difference there between humans and other.
I see. Yeah, I agree to a certain extent, and I see where you're going with that, Poffo. However, here's the way I see it. I see that certain ones of us, some humans, just a few humans, are able to think about this and realize this. But I think most humans are behaving exactly like those other animals without any thought at all as to what they're doing.
Like Peter Boghossian, no offense to him, but he's breathing the bacon and breath in my face as he's talking to me because he's like this close to me. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, you're a highly intelligent man, highly erudite and intelligent and in academia. You're so smart, you're so rational, you're so logical. But when it comes to this aspect of your life, you're a caveman. You're so primitive. And then the guy that was hunting, the hunter today that I talked to, who was mentioning it, I look at them and I just say, you are just you are under-evolved in this area. In this, when it comes to this, you're just behaving like another animal. But it's foolish. It's actually illogical because we're not carnivores. Physiologically we're herbivores. So, hey, Iman, I don't want to talk too much. If you want to talk, just butt in because I tend to ramble.
Okay. No, I'm listening.
Oh, yeah. I had a few things I wanted to say. See, here's one approach that I think is very, very interesting. Like, now, I don't know if I told you, Poffo, but I was telling Gaius last week about how I joined the health club at Rediscover. So now, like, I can lift weights in the exercise room, and I just had to meet with the personal trainer who heads the program. And it's cool. Like, I have these measurements. Like, I have, like, 46.4 skeletal muscle and, like, only 8.6% body fat, and it's like it's a body age of 21. Like, I have these incredible stats here, and I'm like the healthiest she's ever seen, and I'm probably the only vegan she's ever met. But here's the thing about it. My idea is, if people see how incredibly healthy and strong I am, I'm thinking that may win them over, whereas words do not. I've actually thought about this because you know, Poffo, like, you know how people are about words. People play these semantic games, and trying to discuss things doesn't work. But when people can see that somebody who's been on a vegan diet for a long time is strong and is healthy and young looking. Yeah,
and you're a walking billboard. You're a walking billboard for our cause. Yeah. You represent, you're representing something. Because that's what other people care about. People are superficial. People are all about external. So the health thing.
I think being a role model is a good thing to do. And it definitely is something that vegans should be doing, is putting themselves out there to show, like, vegans are healthy, or even, there's vegans of all different shapes and sizes and fitness levels. So, we are a diverse population, and anybody can be vegan. But I also feel like
we do have a responsibility to be healthy, but then at the same time, it's not just about health. We have to address the ethical aspect.
Yeah.
If somebody's not willing to look into the ethics of veganism, like, then it'll just be like another, like, oh, I could go on a diet, but I guess I don't really feel like it. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm always trying to stress the point of the animals. Of just got to think about the animals. We just got to think about what we're doing to them, how unnecessary it is, and just how we view other non-human animals. That's what really needs to change. Is to not see animals as objects and things, and to stop using them and completely exploiting them on every level for just for our need.
Definitely. Yeah, but see, here's the thing about it is there's got to be a way, like, because Poffo, like I'm like the most non-superficial person you ever met. You said something like that. See, I don't care much for appearance. However, I'm trying to think about that to the extent that I appear appealing to people as a vegan, in some way, that may at least get them interested. Hopefully they will become vegan for ethical reasons because they will understand that. But it's like there's got to be a way. You might say there's got to be an effective way to sell veganism to people. You know what I mean? There's just got to be a way.
But I think if somebody doesn't go vegan for ethical reasons, then they're not going to stay vegan. It'll just be like another fad diet.
I've always said that it has to be for ethical reasons.
And also, if you don't
just for health, it doesn't stick with them. They don't have that motivation.
And if you don't get the social support and find a community, then it'll also just be that much harder to find a reason to stay vegan.
It's very, very important that we have a support group, that we get involved in local communities. When I posted the that giant speak out demonstration, I just posted in the in the post I said, get involved in your local communities, like do some form of activism. We can all do something, and we need each other. Like or people will end up backsliding, or they'll end up giving up on it because it's too difficult. Like where Chandler lives, he's like in the Midwest, sort of. It's really difficult. There's the awareness is not there.
This is a thing. Like, of course, now Poffo, you've never been to Lisa, Missouri, have you?
I've driven through it. That's about it.
Oh, really?
Well, maybe not that town, but I've driven through Missouri.
Yeah. What about you, Iman?
Nope.
Okay, so let me tell you about Lisa, Missouri. Okay, this is a weird town. Of course, everybody says that about their own town, right, where they live. But people are strange. All they care about is baseball and football. Seriously. I don't know what it is. It's always baseball, football, their churches and religious organizations, and sex. That's all people care about, and I hate all those things. So, I'm the odd one out, especially in Missouri. And I
think sports are such a waste of time. I mean, not playing sports for fun, for health, but I've always said this. The superstar, sports fanatics, like professional sports, is just the biggest waste of resources and money and time, and it's just a distraction. There's so many more important things. I don't support sports. I don't support the military, and I don't support making babies. Did you know I'm an anti-natalist?
I guess, I would call myself an anti-natalist too, because babies.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting.
Not just because we don't like babies, but because the idea of reproducing, the idea of the human beings just continuously proliferating and breeding and popping out kids, and when
making more parasites.
Kids.
This is very interesting, people, because
bacteria.
Because there's like this direct link between, like, people may not always see it, but there is a link between anti-natalism and veganism to a certain extent. And because, quite honestly, I am sort of anti-natalist. I hesitate to use the term, but because it can be so misunderstood, so I don't go around calling myself that. But I'm sort of an anti-natalist, basically, because those children, 99.9% of them, are going to be carnists that are going to continue to contribute to
You've heard the alternative argument, right? That that vegans should have children so that we can make more vegans. You know what sucks, Chandler? The stupidest people are the ones who are breeding and making babies. The stupidest, most undereducated, ass backwards people. No offense, but it's the Muslims, it's the Armenians, it's the fundamentalist religious people, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. They are just going to outbreed all the intellectuals, all the intelligent people, because the intellectuals are saying we don't want to contribute to overpopulation, we don't want to put a strain on the environment, we don't want to leave our carbon footprint. All this stuff, we were more responsible than that. We know that it's a huge responsibility. So we're doing the right thing, but I don't know, biologically we're going to lose. So it's
I know.
I've heard the opposite argument.
I just feel like
vegans should have babies.
There's no point in trying to fight the overpopulation that we've already established. It doesn't make more sense to make vegan babies because you don't know if they're going to stay vegan. I don't know, if there's more chance of kids growing up vegan becoming vegan for life. But it just seems like, the world is we're taking out so many resources, and, in 100 years, there's going to have to be a warlike situation going on, because there's no way that we're going to be able to manage the resources that we're already.
We're already past the tipping point right now.
It's just right now we're damage control. There's no way of turning back and fixing what's already been done.
Yeah, but what Poffo was saying was exactly what the movie Idiocracy was about.
I got to see that, because you keep referencing it. I got to see it.
I watched that.
Yeah, Idiocracy, it was the most true movie. Seriously, that was the most accurate movie ever. And here's why. Because it was exactly what Poffo was talking about. It was all the people who were completely brainless and thoughtless that they were reproducing, whereas other people who they didn't want to reproduce. They wanted to wait at least until it was right time. They had all their shit together. They knew what they were doing. And so basically all the stupid people kept procreating and the others weren't. And so then over 500 years, this guy's cryogenically frozen for 500 years. And then when he wakes up 500 years later, everybody is as dumb as you can imagine. Even dumber than they are now.
In WALL-E, where all the people are kind of fat and they're floating around, they don't even walk.
Yes, WALL-E. Yes, that is another movie that's the exact same thing. That's exactly what
science fiction is really a poignant prophecy, man. It predicts a possible future. We need to take those warnings seriously.
Those movies, I don't even consider them fiction. I consider them an actual prophecy of where we're headed. That's exactly where we're headed.
I'm still tripping out about this point. I lived in LA for the last 10 years, okay? Mexicans, that's all they do, man. They just keep popping out kids. And it's we see them walking across the street, and there's the little one, the baby, the sister, the brother, the mother, and then she's pregnant, and then she's pushing a stroller, and it's what the hell? You're getting pregnant every cycle, every 9 months you're just gonna get pregnant again.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Now, Poffo, if I'm not mistaken, aren't Mexicans heavily indoctrinated by Catholicism?
Most Mexicans are Christian or Catholic or Jehovah's Witnesses. It's always Christianity. It doesn't vary from that. Either they're going to be, actually they're pretty much predominantly Christian or Catholic. And again, this is what I'm trying to say. And this is not racism. Okay, it has to do with the culture, right. And it has to do with cultural indoctrination. Basically, you're inculcated into this. We're talking about the health aspects. I mean, right. So many are overweight and unhealthy and having heart disease and stuff because all they eat is cheese and meat, and bread. It's cheese and meat, like heavy on the dairy and the cheese and meat. So it's just we're talking about like the negative consequences of it. I don't like culture. I don't know. You don't know this about me yet, Iman, but I don't like culture because I think culture stagnates. It's not progressive. It's not open to new and emergent information. It stays in its own little bubble, and it's not necessarily a good thing because it's a type of culture or tradition that don't change.
I don't know. Some of it can be good, but then a lot of it, if it is keeping people from progressing and from making those changes, then it is a bad thing. But for example, like there's some pretty good cultures out there that do lead to, long, healthy lives, like indigenous Native Americans. They had a good relationship with the land, and they weren't like really as wasteful as like white colonialists. And also like the Japanese people that live in like Okinawa are some of the longest living people. So, there's like some merits to cultures, but not all of them. And definitely not like
aspects in those cultures. Right. Yeah, there's aspects within those cultures that are good. And then also a lot of this is from dating back from the past. But as it becomes modernized and they're exposed to, and they actually develop more income and they have access to more of a Western diet, their health rate is dropping. Yeah. And it's
but they didn't choose that. That's like not their, like the indigenous people before the white colonialists came, their health was so much better. And now they're such a marginalized minority, and they're at the highest risk for type 2 diabetes, obesity, substance use. It's all about like the way that the world has evolved, and people just taking advantage of and exploiting the earth instead of like just using it respectfully.
Exploiting other beings, exploiting animals, exploiting other people, and exploiting the natural resources that Mother Gaia provides. Absolutely. That's the problem. That's the core. That's the heart of it, is why are we so goddamn selfish? Why? Why is the world revolve around us? Why can't we see ourselves as a one family in an interconnected system, living as we should in a symbiotic way with the earth, the environment, with other species and other life forms. And this is what Biopan is all about.
Yeah, and here's the thing about the culture thing. I get exactly what I think Poffo meant is, culture is where we just do things out of tradition. Like that's the way people in your area do it. That's the way people of your country do it. And so we don't make progress because we're stuck by tradition. Whereas if something is a good thing to do, we should all be doing it regardless of our culture. If it's a bad thing to do, we should not be doing it no matter what our culture. So yeah, I say throw away culture entirely.
I think that like communities of people, like language, for example, I think that's one important aspect of culture. That's like, I think people should have the ability to be unique. So I don't think that culture is entirely useless. I just do also, I feel like tradition, the one aspect of culture that has a lot of potential to be harmful, that's something that we need to think critically about and, just analyze, is this culture harmful, or is it bringing us together? Is it bringing us into like a healthy community?
Culture that is not, absolutely, I agree 100%. Culture that is not in sync with human biology, culture that is not like, operating in concert with what we know about nature, with what we know about science, and like basically like the modern with modern knowledge and information. If culture is like resistant to that, resistant to change and to learning about the world, then it's unhealthy. Then it's counterproductive, and we shouldn't support it. We shouldn't support any culture or race or religion or organization that is damaging, to the human body, that is damaging to the human psyche, or that's damaging and exploitative towards other animals or towards the earth. And that's almost every race and culture and religion, except maybe paganism or Wicca or some aspects of Buddhism or Jainism. And there's just very few. And then you have atheists and agnostics and secular humanists and skeptics who are logic-based and thinking, rationally, and they have a good understanding of science, but many of them are pessimistic. Many of them are nihilistic, and they say, well, life has no purpose and everything's meaningless. And, so they might not respect the natural world because they'll always say, well, everything in nature is out to kill us. It's not friendly to us. So, it becomes very solipsist and nihilistic. And you know what I'm talking about, Chandler.
I know exactly what you're talking about and it's like to a certain extent I agree with those people, but at the same time I'm kind of like, so what? So what? There's no ultimate meaning or purpose. Who gives a shit? Like really, let's make the best of it. Let's have a purpose. It's the purpose that we want. Our biology drives us to want. Regardless, you don't need a deity. You don't need some other weird objective morality. That wouldn't even be useful,
Sure. Yeah. We've talked about it many, many times. Iman, since you're with us, I'm not sure how long you're going to be with us. Do you want to speak about activism and about veganism and just talk to Chandler? Because he hasn't really associated much with other animal rights activists.
Yeah, so for any vegans that are listening, one of my favorite quotes from that vegan couple, which is these people that have a YouTube channel, they're like phrase that they say at the end of their videos is veganism. It's not the most you can do, it's the least you can do. And I definitely agree with that because, it's just you're not participating in violence. That's just any decent human being should be able to say, I don't participate in violence. And so, activism is taking it to the next level. And I also watched another, a really short clip from Direct Action Everywhere, and it was explaining why you should do activism in a really simple analogy. It was saying if you saw somebody beating a dog, you wouldn't you could either join in, which is what meat eaters are doing, or you could say, no, I'm not going to participate in that, which is what vegans are doing. Or you could be like, stop what you're doing right now, which is what activists are doing. So
it's a great analogy.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I would agree. Now, veganism is easy. Here's what I mean, because it's a non-action. It's simply a not doing something. And it not doing things is easy. If you're lazy, it's just easy to just not do things. It's easy to just not go slaughter people. It's good to just not buy certain products that lead to slaughter. Not doing things is so easy. I don't understand what's so hard about that. I'm a big fan of not doing things.
It's so hard because we've already been inculcated and we've already been taught that this is what you eat for breakfast. This is what you need for calcium. This is what you need for strong bones and healthy teeth. This is what you need to grow muscle. We've been taught myths, lies, misinformation, cultural myths, basically propaganda from the meat, egg, and dairy industry to sell their products. So that's what makes it difficult. It's an unlearning. You have to be willing to sort of relinquish the old habits and what you're used to.
All right, I gotta get going. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Sure, thanks for spending time with us. Appreciate it.
Bye.
We'll do it again next time.
Bye. Yeah, well, that was cool having her on for a short time. Yeah, but Poffo, this is actually very interesting because there's all these myths, and I guess part of the reason I agree with the statement that it has to be for ethical reasons rather than just health reasons is because all the myths and lies that people are believing is going to misinform them about what's healthy or not. How can you really know? So when it came to me, for example, I didn't care whether or not I was healthy or whether or not I needed animal products. It came to a point where I'm like, well, I would rather die than continue to exploit and kill all those other animals.
Yeah, that's a very strong. I mean, very few people. Most people have their number one prime directive. Their biological imperative is self-preservation, and so your ethical, your value system sort of overrides that. So that's kind of rare. Most people are thinking about themselves and what they have to give up, and they're thinking about how it's going to be so difficult and how they're going to handle holidays. And certain people like us. I mean, for me personally, I'm living a more isolated life where I don't have those sort of pressures, family pressures and stuff like that. Like I straight up, this was for me. This was for the animals. I don't give a shit what anybody says. They can't influence me. I dealt with a little bit of it when I went to northern Idaho, and I saw how ass backwards they were there, and being around my girlfriend's parents, and being just the shock, the culture shock of being in another situation where people are completely uninformed and uneducated about this. And I saw how difficult it can be, but that didn't affect me at all. I mean, I ate at Golden Corral, and I'm pretty sure I ended up eating something that had milk in it, just because everything there, biscuits, food, I was trying to pick stuff out, I was trying to pick vegetables out, and it was cooked with meat. So it just environment itself becomes, a challenge. But at the same time, you got to remind yourself of what you're doing it for, man. You should watch Earthlings at least once a month, or you should expose yourself to what to the horror and to the brutality and the cruelty, and remind yourself of why you're doing this. I don't want to watch that. I'm already vegan, so I don't need to see that anymore. No, you need to see it. You need to remind yourself of why, so that when you're in those situations, you can be strong and you can have confidence and say, no, this is why I'm vegan, because I don't want to partake in cruelty and violence and suffering, because it's unnecessary, and you shouldn't have to either. And we should let our value systems, let our actions align with our value systems instead of being so hypocritical. I love animals. I love puppies and dogs and birds and whatever, but I don't give a shit about pigs or sheep or goats or chickens or lambs or fish, because I don't know them. They're not in my little circle, so that's what needs to change, man. We have to broaden the circle of compassion.
Yeah. When I first started seeing like those documentaries like Earthlings, it was actually linked to in Magnus Vinding's Kindle book, Why We Should Go Vegan. Like, he actually had a link in the Kindle book. So, like, I clicked the link. I had, like, it on my computer, actually. And so I clicked it. And back then, you could watch Earthlings for free. Later on, it was where you had to buy it. And I think that was actually a bad move. Because who's going to pay to watch that? It is awful.
Be out there in the public domain so that anybody can just stumble across. That's the best way. I find it so difficult. I found three copies, 3 links to it today, and I made sure I saved them because they always take it down, for copyright reasons. But it's so important.
Yeah, for a while I actually had it downloaded to my computer, but it was taking up like nearly 2 gigabytes of space. So finally I deleted it because personally I wasn't planning on watching it again. But believe me, man, I've seen that. I've seen many other videos of the slaughter. And something? And here's the thing. This was not my first exposure. Like, when I got into veganism, that was not my first exposure to graphic images, because I had been seeing, the images, like videos and images of fetuses being aborted and sort of that stuff of, with the whole abortion thing. And it's the exact same reaction, whether it's that or whether it's seeing a cow or a chicken that it got killed or whatever. This the exact same reaction. I can't stand it. So exactly, that's why I don't want to participate in it, And I really wish people would see the connection there, because I don't know if anybody else has really connected that issue the way I have. But Poffo, maybe you'll understand this, that both pro-life and pro-choice people on the abortion debate both have a serious problem if they are carnist. Because if you're pro-life and against killing the human babies, how can you be a carnist? Which is why I had to go vegan. But on the flip side,
the distinction between humans and non-human animals that's there. There's a huge distinction. See, it's so difficult because, like earlier I said, there is a great distinction when it comes to intelligence and moral and ethical capacity. but there is no distinction when it comes to the value of a life form, their ability to suffer, their ability to feel pain, their ability to experience fear and anguish and anxiety and stress. That's what that dividing line needs to be erased. What's very interesting tonight, what Iman is going to right now, is an event. You're gonna love this, at an all vegan bar called Blackwater, and they're doing like a play where this girl is gonna do like this, I think it's like poetry or something, talking about abortion and talking about like it's a comedy about abortion and trying to kind of make light of it. And I might be misunderstanding this, but trying to make light of it and trying to sort of destigmatize it. And because there's a lot of liberal people here, and there's a lot of pro-choice people here, especially in the gay and lesbian community. So that's where she's going to. She invited me to tonight. It starts at 7, so that's probably where she had to go. But yeah, it's all about, like, that is the pendulum effect. So you can understand this, swinging back from you make babies. That's your job. That's what you do. You procreate. And this is the conservative, patriarchal, male-dominated society where that's what women are used for, and they're basically birthing animals, and they take care of their kids and whatever. So they're getting away from that. It's a push away from that. And it's like, no, I'm not your property. I have my own rights. This is my body, and this is my. And if I don't want to conceive, then I don't have to. So it's a pushback. You got to understand that's why they're not thinking about it.
I absolutely, believe me, Poffo, I understand the pushback because they've been dominated by this Catholic type of thing that women only exist to procreate and make lots of babies, and so I get that they're rebelling against that. And of course, I honestly don't like either, though. You know what I mean? Because you have the old, outdated, archaic religious idea of what women are for, which I don't agree with. On the other hand, you have this liberal pushback and this rebellion against it, which is just a reaction to the other thing. But then they end up completely haywire and not respecting any life at all, is what I find.
It's like the feminist movement itself is very masculine. It's very aggressive. It can be very – it's defeating the purpose. You don't want to become the thing that you're trying to oppose in the process. Go ahead.
Well, and one more thing I wanted to make sense is that pro-choice people are also having a problem because they're being hypocrites too. Now, of course, they don't realize this because they're making a distinction and saying humans are more important than other animals. So they have this problem. But here's what they're doing is they're trying to fight for a human woman's right to bodily autonomy and to not be pregnant if she doesn't want to not be raped, all of those things. Yet they are doing it to carnists. Pro-choicers are doing this to cows, not giving them their bodily autonomy.
They're not making the connection with non-human animals. Yeah, that's why we stood out there outside of Salt and Straw on Mother's Day and said, if it's all about, love and respect for our mothers, what about the animal mothers? What about the mothers that have been raped and tortured and impregnated again and again and having their babies stolen from them again and again, having to watch being forcefully impregnated, being forced to carry, give birth to your child, and then have it stolen from you, then just so that another species can steal your milk. Steal the milk that's the food for that baby, and then every time you give birth, that baby is taken again. You don't think that creates trauma? I mean, it's just stop seeing animals as objects, man. Stop seeing them as these non-thinking, non-feeling resources, to be harvested and to be exploited. That's all it comes down to, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you stop exploiting animals, then you'll naturally stop exploiting other people, other human beings. You have sexism and bigotry and racism and misogyny and homophobia. All these things they stem from a fundamental belief that the other is inferior, that someone that looks different, that someone that sounds different, someone that has a different shape, different color, different body type is less than you, and that some beings matter more than others, and that is the problem. That's the source of it all. So, like Gary Yourofsky says, you eliminate speciesism, by default you will eliminate racism and human trafficking. and rape and violence and all these things, because we learn how to do it on the animals. We've been doing it for thousands of years on the animals, and then we do the exact same thing to other human beings. I mean, the Old Testament is right full of this, that, go into all these other nations and rout them out, and keep the virgins for yourself, and, kill the cattle, and kill anyone who resists, and it's literally like the Bronze Age, the Abrahamic faiths are the cause of all the misery in the world. I swear. The teachings and the mentality that's there, that is carried over, and in the worst case now, because Islam has not had a reformation, so it still is in that Bronze Age mentality of primitive, archaic thinking of the denigration of women, of the denigration of animals, of seeing women and animals as property, and completely male-dominated, patriarchal. That needs to fucking end, man. That needs to get squashed. Pantheism, biopan, is at its core, it is intrinsically what's the word? It is a representation of the divine feminine, of bringing back the nurturing, mothering aspect of Gaia, of goddess worship. And it doesn't mean you have to worship something, but it's the idea of respect for the life principle, for the life-giving principle, and instead of and getting away from this warlike mentality of male-dominated societies and violence and stuff. So
I agree with you 150%. Seriously, like seriously, man. Like, look, just the Old Testament, is alone is enough to show you that that's what they claim, that where it's commanded by their God to go, they can kill everything, and they can rape the women, and
they have divine warrant to do it. They have God on their side. It's the worst idea ever.
Right. They claim that is the one true God, and that is their source for morality, and that being is going to judge what's right or wrong. And it's like, excuse me, like, what? Are you kidding?
There could not be a greater oxymoron. There cannot be a greater paradox than that.
I mean, because here's what it comes down to is, Poffo, we are more moral than the supposed deity that's the source of morality.
Sure, the God of the Bible. We, our modern sensibilities, the cultural advancements we've made, the level of ethics and morality of where we stand now, we are leaps and bounds ahead of what Yahweh was telling people to do. How
I know.
Supposedly the creator of the universe, what the creator of the universe actually cares about.
Yeah.
Because,
and isn't it funny, Poffo, that Jesus referenced the golden rule, what was called the golden rule, But as soon as you accept the golden rule, then you have to completely trash the rest of the book that commands you to go and hurt others.
The Bible is wrought with contradictions. I mean, we know that. It's just filled with contradictions. Some good things in it, and some really, really bad things in it. And that's the problem, is that once it's taken as an ultimate authority, as an ultimate standard, this is the inspired word of God, then everything that's bad in it gets glorified, gets gets held up to this ridiculous idolatrous standard, and says, "Oh, well, see, God hates homosexuals." And
right. Another way of saying it is they hold it as sacred. They hold it as like a sacred, unquestionable thing. You cannot challenge it because it is the most important thing to them. And so there's no reasoning with them.
Logic and reason and common sense and just learning the consequences of our actions, that should be our moral guide. It's reality. It's cause and effect. Not what was written by people who didn't know that the earth revolved around the sun. Not written by people who were really entrenched in goat herding and basically using animals as a form of monetary exchange, using animals as a form of commerce. That's the origin of slavery right there. Once you start enslaving other life forms, then Anybody else that deviates from what you deem to be, moral and holy and just and spiritual, well, they're below you. They're below you if they're not circumcised. Because cutting the skin off the tip of your penis is a holy thing that the creator of the universe wants, and that's how he knows that you're his. And the great Father Abraham, who is their they've deified, who is their supreme example of how to be, was the one who almost murdered his kid because he heard voices. So
yeah, exactly. When you look at the kind of role models they have, then it's no wonder how screwed up they are, And it's
patriarchs are scum. I'm telling you, I told you I was like in a bad mood. I was kind of emotional, so I'll tell you. The patriarchs are all scum, man. Like they're scumbags. I mean, Lot, come on, giving his daughters up to be raped. All of them. Noah getting drunk and having sex with his daughters, having sex. So there's so much scandalous stuff in the Bible, in the Old Testament, and the New Testament. The New Testament is not exempt from it either. So it's not like there's like a mean, shitty God in the Old Testament and a new, nice, fluffy, happy God in the New Testament, because the God of the New Testament is the one who's going to burn you forever in hellfire just for not believing just the right thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right, man. I mean, I'm totally agreeing with you because man.
We're supposed to be talking about veganism. Come on.
Yeah, I know, but now the reason this is relevant, Poffo, is how often does this come up when you're discussing veganism, where people say, well, God gave us permission to eat animals, and they can point to the Bible, and it's like, that's another thing that I find that one of the most annoying things right there.
Yeah, in your area, because it's more conservative, more evangelical. Yes. In my area where I live now, that's not the most common argument. The most common argument is the appeal to nature, and basically the lack of knowledge about how harmful animal products and animal flesh is to the human body. That's what I encounter, because this is a more liberal, progressive sort of environment.
Yeah.
So it's different, but same bullshit excuses and misinformation. But
yeah, it's interesting. See, I actually happen to know a guy that he said he used to be vegan, but then he's like, oh, well, it's not a big deal because God gave us permission to eat animals, so it doesn't really matter. And I'm like, oh man. And it's like so many people are kept from.
Why don't you question the morality of your God? Why don't you question the commands and the tenets of your God if your God is commanding you to sacrifice goats to take away the guilt of something you did, so punish an innocent life form? Does that make any sense? That the whole scapegoat, substitutionary, probationary, sacrificial atonement is the most ridiculous, repugnant, primitive, tribal concept that we look at the tribes in Africa and we're like, oh wow, aren't they primitive? They look how ass backwards they are. Okay, so I'm going to church this week. You want to go with me? We're going to worship the dead carcass of a man on a cross, because that's the most glorious moment in all of history. Is when human sacrifice has been glorified.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing about it. I found that particularly problematic. Even when I was trying to be Christian, I could never really accept that, because I would say, like, well, I wouldn't have crucified Jesus because that's not nice. It was wrong for him to be crucified. It was wrong for him to die. And so you have to be sick in the head in order to like the fact that Jesus died. It's like, what? How?
I mean, to be fair, it didn't end with his death. There's the mythology of the resurrection. There's basically it's the life cycle and the death, burial, resurrection of the sun, because it all took place in the winter solstice. It was all tied into astrotheology. So to be fair, there is this rejuvenating, positive aspect that he didn't stay on the cross. He came back to life, and that gives people hope. And that's just, hey, you're talking about pantheism, because that's a reflection of nature. That's what goes on in nature. Every season and every life cycle of every animal on this planet, there is a birth, death, and resurrection cycle that goes on. So they just stole that from nature. That's why it's so enduring.
And that's true, Poffo. And see, here's the thing about it is, of course, life will continue on in some form. Everything is all matter just keeps getting recycled and changes forms forever. So the thing is, maybe there is a hope of that resurrection, that massive change that can happen. But I don't think it's going to be the human race. I really don't. I don't think it'll be anywhere. The human race will be long extinct for a long time before something much better arises, is what I think.
The human race has the greatest potential to evolve beyond all this. Right now, we are right at the crux of pure evolution and enlightenment. And yet we are also the most destructive force on this planet. And we are also the greatest threat. We're the greatest threat to the biosphere at the same exact time. We are the demons and the angels of this planet right now.
Yeah, well, here's an analogy, and I know this is going to sound funny, but it's kind of like okay, let's say you've got 3 people who all got in mind that they're going to jump across the Grand Canyon. Okay, you got these 3 people. You know, one person jumps 3 feet, somebody else jumps 5 feet, and then somebody else jumps 10 feet. So, yeah, one came the farthest, the closest to jumping across the Grand Canyon, but all 3 of them died and never made it jumping across the Grand Canyon. And that's my thing is, yes, I agree with you. Humanity has come the closest to what would be ideal. They have the potential, but they won't make it. Something else far better than them will make it someday, maybe.
If it's not us, it'll take another 35,000 years.
Yeah.
Evolutionarily speaking, it'll if it's not a primate, I'm trying to think of another species on this planet that's really close to. There's no way of knowing because evolution is an incredible sort of gamble. We don't know. It could be fish. It could be bats.
It could be unicorns.
It could be something could evolve and who knows? But I don't know. I'm part of the human race, so I just feel it's my obligation, it's my duty. I don't know what to say, Chandler.
Twilight Sparkle, the star of the show. The unicorn with wings. I need to take the sticker off this thing.
You collect them? You actually collect them the way you collect like Tommy Carolyn toys?
I have a collection here. I've got.
I don't want to see anymore. It's
yeah. But yeah, seriously, man, I've got like Twilight Sparkle. I've got Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, Applejack, and then I have various horses that like 50 cents at a thrift store. That kind of stuff. I collect horses. It's my. Let's see.
If you have a little niece or like a cousin that comes to visit you, man, she'll have lots of stuff to play with.
I know I'm hoping, like seriously, I'm hoping that I can entertain children with my stuffed horses somehow. Because, in fact, I actually did that before. My mom had these music students that were really young, and I would keep this girl occupied by letting her play with my horses while the other one was taking their lesson. It's amazing, but I seriously, man, I'm like a little girl trapped in a 30-year-old man's body.
And you're not afraid to say so. I mean, that's the amazing part.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying this to the whole world. I mean, they all know it anyway by now. But yeah, seriously, there's just something about. To me, like, and you know this, you've seen legend, you've seen enough mythology. You see, like with unicorns, like, and horses in general, but unicorns are depicted as being these peaceful, serene creatures. They're not violent, they're non-threatening, they are just innocent. There's something about the way they're depicted in fiction that I view as the ideal, and that is the ideal that we humans and every other life form that's able should strive toward that ideal of being harmless, just being pure and you know what I mean? You get what I'm saying here?
Totally. Yeah, totally. I was just thinking that we're never really harmless because we're always destroying some other life form just because of the scale, the size of our bodies. We're going to destroy insects and bacteria and whatever. But we should be as harmless as possible, and as far as we are able, we should try to mitigate and avoid unnecessary suffering and harm. That's the point. That's what veganism is. It's just trying to do the least amount of harm because we know that life is cruel life is unkind, and we are in many ways in a rat race and competition with other aspects of nature. Yeah. So as highly evolved, sentient, sapient beings, we should do the best that we can to just live and behave as highly evolved beings and stop reverting backwards to earlier times, a mentality that stems from an earlier time period. Yeah. Like we're just absolutely not living up to our potential of what we've already achieved right now.
Yeah, well, and here's what I would say is obviously, yeah, you're right. I mean, we can never completely eliminate all the harm we caused. You know, there's no way we can ever avoid killing bacteria or insects entirely, you know. But I think we can do away – it is theoretically possible to do away with all intentional harm. There's nothing we can do about the accidents that we're not even aware of. But I think it's possible to live in a way where you never intentionally harm anyone.
Yeah, exactly. That's what – I mean, here, veganism is a philosophy and a way of living which seeks to exclude – as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, and any other purpose, and by extension promotes the development and use of animal-free alternatives for the benefit of humans, animals, and the environment. In dietary terms, it denotes the practice of dispensing with all products derived wholly or partly from animals. That's the definition of veganism.
Yeah. In fact, I was just on the Vegan Society's website today and read that exact statement, actually. Yeah. In fact, Jamie, it's
important that we know that people know what veganism actually represents.
Yeah,
it's not
definitely.
this perfect ideal. Because I have arguments with Peter all the time. Well, if you really care about life and blah, 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 then you're just by breathing, you're killing life. And, you know, he's even thrown the argument, the stupid the asinine argument that we kill more animals by growing crops and stuff like that to eat the vegetation, that we're killing field mice and things like that. And it's just so asinine. It's so ridiculous. So the point is we're trying to eliminate the harm that we know we're causing. Let's just start with the obvious, the overtly obvious harm that we're causing, that the torture and the exploitation that we're causing. So start with that, and then we can try to spread this awareness and this compassion, this level of consciousness out in all avenues. But go ahead.
What I was going to say is here's what actually inspired me, that reminded me to look at the Vegan Society is, so Jamie Soden, you know him, he sent me this vegan omega-3. It's algae. It's totally vegan, and it says approved by the Vegan Society. It's plant-made capsules. It's made from algae. It has all this good stuff. It's awesome, and it's that reminded me to look at the Vegan Society website. But that's cool, you know, because I mean, and that's just one of many things that people don't think about. They don't need to eat fish oil, you know.
Right. You can get the omega-3s and the essential fatty acids from that specific algae, and that kind of gets into what we're talking about is the layers of sentience. That algae is not quite a plant, but it's not quite an animal, but it doesn't have a central nervous system that it can feel pain. It's a living organism, right? It's a kind of the phytobacteria, if I'm correct. But it doesn't suffer and doesn't experience the same amount of suffering. It can proliferate, it can grow. It's like you're eating mold, you know, and I see mold grow in my bathroom, and I have to kill it. I have to clean it with bleach. Right. And it spreads and spreads, and it's I'm impressed by mold because it's an amazing life form that can grow anywhere, and it shows up so fast. Okay, but yet it's infringing on my well-being. Right. It's not healthy if you breathe it in. Black mold, if you breathe it in, you get sick.
Yeah.
So in self-defense, I have to kill it. Now, that has nothing to do with veganism. Veganism is about sentient animals. It's about respecting. When we say we respect and honor life, we're talking about life that's born, that breathes, that cries, that screams, that feels pain, that has families, that has thoughts and feelings. We're talking about higher life forms. That distinction needs to be made.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it does need to be made. Yeah, and this is very important, Poffo, is that, I mean, people try to bring up self-defense scenarios, for example, as invalidating veganism or something, and that's completely insane.
Scenarios that don't exist and aren't practical.
Right, because most of the violence that happens in this world is not self-defense. It's completely just harming somebody with no justification. There is no justification when you get down to most of the violence that takes place. And yeah, it's very interesting.
Tradition, convenience, and taste are not acceptable reasons to enslave, exploit, torture, mutilate, and murder. Other life forms. Like tradition, convenience, and taste are unacceptable reasons, and to do so makes you evil, makes you immoral.
And here's actually a sort of an argument that I've been forming in my head. I'm not sure how to complete this argument, but here's how it goes. Basically, most people believe in some deity and some type of intelligent design. You know what I mean? And here's what I'm thinking. Which, between the plants or the animals, which looks like it was designed for us to eat? The plants or the animals? Think about it. Which
look at our bodies and look at what our bodies are designed to eat. Look at our teeth and our lack of claws and our salivary glands and our long intestinal tract and all the different things that are completely 100% parallel in line with a herbivore and specifically a frugivore, and what we're supposed to eat. And that was actually the one of the turning points for me is when it clicked. I said, I'm a biopantheist. This is biologically correct. This is biologically accurate. I'm a primate. I'm a frugivore. My ancestors were eating fruits and vegetation long before they ever ate meat, and for a longer extended period of time in the evolutionary history of my race, of my species. So it just makes sense. It just fits.
And that's absolutely
calls for it. Our bodies are calling for it. Our bodies are crying out for it, man. That's why we season our meat with vegetables, with herbs and spices. That's why we're getting so sick with cancer and diabetes and heart disease and strokes and respiratory problems, kidney failure, osteoporosis, because our bodies are telling us that we're not meant to eat other animals. We're not meant to eat animal products.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, there are two things I want to say in response to that. First of all, you're absolutely right. And for example,
This is a carnivore. See his teeth? His jaw opens and closes. It doesn't grind, and he's got the claws. And I had to cut his claws, but he's got claws. He's got the ears. He's got the eyesight. He's a killer. He's a fat ass. He probably couldn't catch anything if he tried. But my other cat, she's a killer. She brought a dead pigeon in. That's what cats do. They need that protein. But we don't. We're not made for it.
But here's the thing: is I was actually going for something even simpler. You're absolutely right about the physiology that we're not carnivores, but I was going for something simpler that you don't need to know any science at all to understand. Okay, Think of this: which runs away and which doesn't run away? Which is easier to catch, the plant or the animal? It looks like the plants were designed for us to eat because they don't run away.
Fruits have evolved. I've said this many times. Fruits have evolved in concert with human evolution. We have a symbiotic relationship with them because we are a way for them to spread their seeds. As we eat the fruit and we defecate, the seeds are, and that's why they're so bright and pretty and colorful, because our eyes adapted alongside the fruit. We spend more time in the trees eating the fruits and eating the vegetation. That's why those colors, those rich colors, are so evocative to us, and they're so pleasing to the eye. But you look at a dead body, you look at a carcass, and you're nauseated. You're disgusted by it. You look at a roadkill, you don't go, that looks good. Let me throw some salt on it, and I'm going to devour it. You're not a vulture. You're not a carrion bird.
I know. Yeah. See, whenever I see a squirrel on the road that got run over by a car, I throw up. Like, seriously, I can't stand the sight of it. It's like
some of us are a little more, squeamish than others. I mean, Amber and I. Yeah. Amber loves looking at autopsy photos and things like that. I'm an ex-makeup artist, so I don't have a problem with blood. I'm not squeamish, but obviously I'm not turned on by the sight of death, the smell of death. I'm not turned on. It doesn't, and most human beings, most rational, sensible human beings, that's not in their nature. We're not natural carnivores. We're not omnivores.
Well, that's the thing, man. I am squeamish. I'm hypersensitive to it, and so I'm just so much more repulsed by it than you are. Even it sounds like, but yeah.
I have to watch. I have to watch animal abuse videos every day. I watch animal cruelty videos. Literally, like 85% of my day is spent sorting through, watching this stuff. You know, corresponding with other people, sharing that information. Also, in our activism, the Cube of Truth, I'm watching the videos. I'm talking about the videos. I'm listening to it. So yeah, and there's a point where you can become desensitized to it, and that's why I have to keep watching it, so that I never become complacent. I have to always remember what the animals are going through. So
yeah, I see. But I'd never be desensitized to it. It's just absolute torture, man, for me. But you get what I'm saying, right? The animals run away, whereas the plants don't. So it looks to me like we were meant, like if you believe in,
and we have the knowledge. We have the knowledge to grow seeds, to grow vegetation and crops.
Yeah.
We are incredible farmers.
Right.
You know, we've learned to grow things, and we've learned the secret of life is in the seeds, in good soil and sunlight and water. So if it's so easy to grow vegetation, and this is not harming the planet, and it's not causing unnecessary harm and suffering, why not? Yeah,
exactly.
I agree.
But yeah, it would appear that might be an argument that perhaps various different types of theists can actually grab onto, where we can get a trend started where those theists believe that it was God's will for us to eat the plants and not the animals. That's what I'm wondering.
In the Garden of Eden, the most ideal state, even in the mythology itself, because we know it's mythology. Like there is this undercurrent, or let's say there's just this notion that purity and peace and the most ideal state is a world without death. And so it's a no-brainer that all the animals ate vegetation, that humans ate vegetation, fruits and vegetation. They just picked from the fruit trees. This was in their own mythology. And of course, but then they ate the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They made the horrible mistake of trying to gain knowledge and wisdom. And then God is the one who actually, Yahweh is the one who brought death into the world, because he killed an animal to provide the skins to cover up their nakedness. So really, who's the first murderer? Who's the first carnist? It's God. It's the Jewish God. It's incredible.
Yeah,
about it.
I know. And when you look at it that way, of course, it's just so obvious, man. You know, but yeah, I mean, we made some really good points, but I'm hoping that trend that actually becomes I'd like for religion to just completely vanish, but I would at least like it to morph into something less harmful until it goes away.
Pantheistic religion, where the fundamental premise is ahimsa, it's doing no harm because we view life and nature as sacred, could be the answer to all this. You know, it's not. It's ending the dysfunctional, destructive religions and instituting a religion that is more than a religion. It's a philosophy. It's a mentality. It's an awareness of the divine nature of life. That could be the answer to everything if it catches on.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing that's why I would hope that your biopantheism can kick the butt of the Abrahamic religions. That's what I'm hoping. You know,
it can't happen if they're outbreeding us, because my crew is smart enough to not have children. There's a lot of anti-natalists among us, but yet the stupid people are the ones breeding it and reproducing and having more and more babies and indoctrinating and inculcating them in the same ignorance and the same archaic, primitive Bronze Age traditions and concepts of that other life forms are inferior. So I don't know, man. Like, I don't know how. Unless they just die out from disease, and we're gonna outlive them, health wise. So the only thing I can think of is that the more and more they abuse and exploit animals and pumping the hormones and the antibiotics and all the chemicals and the pesticides and the growth hormones that are going to create the diseases and consuming so much meat, causing cancer and stuff, that the meat eaters and the carnists are going to die out at a quicker rate. It's a weird thing, because then you have technology trying to save everybody.
Yeah, and it's
help them live longer, but then that's also they're in cahoots with the meat, egg, and dairy industry. So they're just making money. It's a big cycle of making money.
So ironically, even though they have this technology that's supposed to save people's lives, they're actually killing more people in the long run because they're trying to promote.
And they're making money off of killing people. They're making money off of the destruction of the environment. They're making money off of the treatments for these systemic diseases that all stem from heavy consumption of meat, like in a Western diet. So I don't know what the answer is, man. Just education. You gotta just gotta inform people.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, Poffo, and this is an interesting thing with me. I'm just curious what you might think of this, but like personally, I'm a little bit more bothered when killing is done for profit rather than if it's done for another reason, like self-defense. Like the reason behind the killing. Yeah, like, see, personally, like, if somebody is, if they're killing the cockroaches from their house or they're swatting flies, at least they're not doing it on a continual basis because they have a profit motive, because there's no profit motive in it. You get what I'm saying? Whereas the problem with, the breeding these factory farms and all these farm animals, or the case of abortion also, it's a for-profit business. It's where they make a living off of killing. And that's the aspect that makes it bother me more than when somebody steps on a bug on the sidewalk. Because it's intentional and because it's repeated, because there's a motive.
Right. There's a monetary incentive. It makes it completely even more unethical and immoral and atrocious because they're doing it so they can have the pieces of paper and the little numbers punched into the computer system so that they can have access to the basic essentials and necessities of life.
Right.
Why not just give them the access to the essentials and necessities of life, give them access to the resources, do away with the middleman, abolish the whole corporatocracy of capitalism and monetary system and free people up to be ethical and to think and dream and write poetry and use their skills and innovate and be creative. You know what we're talking about, man.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's why, I like the model of the whole resource-based economy. There's no incentive to kill anybody anymore. There's no profit.
The incentive is actually to coexist and to cooperate, which is the only way that our species will survive. It's the only way that we can avert this ecological disaster of climate change and ocean dead zones and the deforestation and just the pollution that the toxic chemicals that are being produced on average every day due to the meat, egg, and dairy industry it's astronomical. People need to watch Cowspiracy. People need to watch What the Health and educate themselves and watch Earthlings and grow a fucking heart, man. Like get back in touch with their own humanity. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and but it is interesting what you were mentioning earlier. It really made me think, are we fighting a losing battle because of the fact that stupid people reproduce more? It makes you wonder if it's even possible. Natural selection is against us, because it's survival of the stupidest is what happens now.
This is a very complex issue. Okay, so biologically, natural selection, it's against us. At the same time, the smart and the wise and the erudite among us are going to be aware of this stuff, and so they're going to try and put a stop to it. At the same time, the elites, the big banksters, the powers that be are also aware of this, but they're also thinking very myopically and limited about saving their families, about enjoying their pleasures while they're here on Earth, things like that. So I don't know. On some level, the evil forces on this planet could be the ones, which it's actually been the case oftentimes, is the rich and the powerful will step in because it's affecting their interests, and they'll actually act benevolently and show some altruistic behavior, but it's to save themselves, and inadvertently they'll save other people. So who knows? Because you're right. I don't think that the kind and the just and the morally the morally evolved people on this earth have the power right now. But the power is in the ideas. The power is in the information and the knowledge itself. So with the internet, if we can get the ideas and we get the philosophy out there, an idea, there is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. So
and that's
when the shit really hits the fan, which it is right now, people may change. We may see this as we may unite and see the global destruction, the environmental destruction, the health consequences as a common enemy, and so we'll put aside their differences and say we want to live and thrive. We all share this universal common bond of being Earthlings. Let's pull our resources together. Let's pull our heads out of our ass and let's do good for each other.
Yeah, and here's a thought, because I'm getting tired and I should get off here soon. But here's a thought. Yeah, I don't think we have a chance of – we're not going to outbreed all those other people, obviously. So we don't really – as people, we don't hold the power. But like you said, it's the ideas themselves that hold the power. And so the information that we put out there with our activism, whatever that may be, that is going to continue upon generations of whoever breeds. So it won't matter who breeds because they will be exposed to that information, and that's what's going to change the world.
I see the vegan movement. I see it growing. I see, I see it making a difference, and I see it influencing people. But at the same time, I mean, we're up against so much. But I don't know, like V for Vendetta. He says, beneath this mask, he says, beneath this mask is more than flesh. Beneath this mask, there's an idea. And ideas are bulletproof. And I always remember that character. That this is a symbol of revolution. It's a symbol for change and social justice, and it represents something. What Guy Fawkes tried to do, trying to whether he was deluded or not, trying to institute a Catholic rule instead of the Protestant rule. But the idea, I mean, it was a failed attempt. A bombing parliament. The idea stands that the actions of a few can change everything if successful. And we can't be afraid to speak out and stand up for what's right and let our voices be heard and speak up for the innocent. And that's what Anonymous for the Voiceless does. It's we are the Anonymous. We're all one. We're all united. And we're speaking up for the voiceless, for those who have no voice. We are their advocate. We are the advocate of the animals. So,
but
you can get involved. I admonish everyone to just get involved and do whatever they can do on any level, whatever their talents and skills and abilities are. Do something. Because being vegan is the very least we can do, just like Iman said.
Yeah. And here's a thought, Poffo. Think about this, like we will be dead, in less than 100 years, most likely, we'll both be dead. There'll be no more Chandler, Klebs, no more Poffo, Ortiz, but that won't matter so long as people are still hearing our message.
These podcasts will still exist. These podcasts, as long as the internet exists, these podcasts will exist. And if I'm successful, Biopan will still exist.
Yeah,
and there'll be another Poffo, and maybe he'll do things better than me. Yeah, he'll be more successful.
Yeah, Poffo 2.0. Yeah, but
or maybe they'll extend our telomeres and we'll live forever, man. Maybe they'll figure that out in our lifetime, and we'll end the aging process. And we can incorporate some of this biotechnology into our systems, and we can live on, and we can get shit done, and we can outlive all these other fuckers because our ideas need to carry on and need to be
it's awesome.
Propagated.
Yeah, but I guess another important point is it's not really our ideas in the first place, because I understand this. We've talked about this, because we're not the ones that came up with veganism. We're not the ones who came up with biology, who came up with empathy.
That's what gives me hope, Chandler. what gives me hope actually is this movement. It didn't start with me, and it's not going to end with me. And so it actually gives me hope, because even if I'm not around, even if I just stop doing activism, I don't do podcasts, I never get my books published. If I fail, if I'm a complete failure, everything that inspired me to do those things, those forces and powers are still at work in the world. There is still the vegan movement. There is still, the atheist movement. There is still there are still forces for good on this earth, and that's coming from Omnia. That's coming from within nature itself. As humanity evolves. As humanity evolves, it's coming out, and we can be players in it, or we can take a back seat.
Yeah, it reminds me of this line from this Dracula game. Okay, so there was this game on the Game Boy Advance. Somehow I got this game. I think some kid traded it to me. Okay, it was Castlevania Circle of the Moon. And at the end, after Dracula is defeated by Nathan Graves, he says, it is a wasted effort. I will never truly be gone. So long as there is darkness and desire in the heart of man, I will continue to be revived. And then what Nathan Graves says to him is, and we will be there to stop you. You can count on that.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard that in other movies, and
I'm pretty sure.
I've heard that, like, as long as something. As long as there is evil, there will always be a force for good to oppose it.
Yes, that's a common theme.
I had a high school friend named Nathan Graves. Actually, it's weird. It's his name.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Nathan Graves was one of the vampire hunters who banished Dracula.
But just you got to take heart and be encouraged, because again, there are activists, there are revolutionaries in the making right now. As long as there's information, as long as our legacy lives on, as long as the legacy of those who came before us, going all the way back to Spinoza and Bruno and Einstein and Thoreau and Emerson and the great transcendentalists and the great pantheists and philosophers of old who tried to steer us in the right direction. There will be others who will pick up the torch and carry on. So, with or without us, these things they came before us, and they'll be here long after we're gone. So we're just playing our part. Think of it like that.
Yeah, and that's a good way to think of it. So it's not like I need to not have that pressure, thinking that I'm like the one vegan who's going to make or break it. Like, but
that pressure is what motivates us. That it's that need, that urgency, that urgency. That there's no time to waste. That is the motivating factor. So it's essential. It's necessary to be there. But yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, we get burnt out all the time. Yeah. You got to just say, hey, I'm a part of this. I'm a part of this system. I can either be a cog in the wheel for capitalism and human slavery, whether it's psychological, mental, physical, whatever, being debt slaves to the monetary system, or I can be a part of this greater system that is seeking higher and higher states of consciousness that involves compassion and empathy, and logic and reason. So we're a part of something greater. We're a part of something bigger. So just don't think of yourself as an island. You're not alone, and you're not alone. And there are forces, there are benevolent forces in this world. Because I always say it. Look at our bodies. Look how our bodies heal. There is some good. There's goodness in nature. Nature wants to live and thrive and multiply and reproduce and spread out and expand and evolve. And there are life is anti-entropic, and then there's these forces of entropy and negativity. They're trying to smash and stamp out life and like a cancer just wants to live for itself, and just serve its own desires and its own wants and needs, and it's not viewing itself as part of the whole. So again, holistic mentality. That's what's necessary.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But so that's very well said. And I probably should stop this broadcast soon and get going, because I'm getting tired. You know how that goes. I start getting weird. Man.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. Do what you got to do. It's later where you are. Thanks again, Chandler, for the opportunity, and
I'm glad we got a chance to finally talk, because we hadn't got it.
I'm gonna be busy, but I mean, you can always catch me. Just text me or message me or whatever.
Yeah, if I am free sometime, I can contact you. So
are you doing a show? Are you doing a show tomorrow? Are you gonna do philosophy, science, and religion, or?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so that's the plan. I'm not entirely sure at the moment. I'm thinking, depending on who shows up, probably if people have a good topic, we'll do it, and if not, let's just forget the whole thing altogether. Because I want it to be good, you know what I mean? But yeah,
man, let's not waste time. Let's make the most of every opportunity.
Yeah, By the way, though, did you enjoy that talk with just George WSD and I?
Last one was, refresh my memory.
Yeah, it was alternate ways to reduce blame. It was like,
to be honest, it was a little slow at times, and it seemed forced because WSD isn't the greatest speaker or orator, but I did appreciate hearing him again. It was nice to give him so much time to speak and stuff, and there was, as I was listening, there was so much I wanted to add, so many different times I wanted to correct George.
I know. Yeah, well, this I gotta say, just so everyone knows, since I haven't stopped the broadcast yet, I just wanted to say I really like WSD. Yeah, man. Yeah, you got to understand. Like, I don't know much about the guy. He's very hidden. He doesn't reveal very much. He doesn't want people to know his true name or where he lives. He's very secretive. All I know is that he's a good friend of Jamie Soden, and they play video games together, and they're both followers of the Venus Project, all that stuff. So he's a super intelligent dude. He's so funny. I like WST.
Yeah, he creates great sort of comic relief. There's a nice contrast there between the intellectuals and then the guy that's just says what he feels.
I like
down to earth, very straightforward.
Yeah, I think people like listening to that. So he is a very valuable member of our podcast team.
I'm trying to remember the subject matter. What you guys discussed though, like some of the points that were being made.
Yeah, it's hard to remember.
I did have some thoughts. I'll share them with you like off air. But yeah, it was interesting. It was good.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm going to stop the broadcast now. Any final statements you want to say? Like,
if you're a vegan out there, just think about everything we've talked about. Don't be afraid to speak out. You don't have to be perfect in the way you speak. You don't have to be perfect and have it all figured out. But as long as you're doing something and you're expressing the truth and you're helping to raise human consciousness and make people aware, the animals don't care. The animals just want to live, and they have every right to live, and they deserve their freedom, and to live in peace and to flourish and thrive, just like we do. So we are not above them in terms of value, but we are in a position, where we can save them. We can help them. So to not do so is a crime. It's a shame, So don't do what you can, and don't think you have to have it all figured out first. Just do what you can, and just try to do as much good as you can, because we're all capable of doing something.